February 1943, North Atlantic, SS Dorchester. Troopship carrying over 900 men. 2 a.m., torpedo hit. U-223 Commander Karl Georg Wachter fired from 600 yards. Direct hit. The Dorchester sank in 18 minutes. Over 600 men died. The escorting destroyer detected the U-boat, charged toward it, dropped depth charges, watched massive explosions erupt in the ocean, waited, searched. Nothing. The U-boat escaped. This happened constantly. German submarines were winning the Battle of the Atlantic, not because their technology was better, because Allied anti-submarine weapons didn't work. Depth charges were the primary weapon. Heavy drums filled with explosives rolled off the back of destroyers, set to detonate at specific depths. The problem? By the time you dropped them, the submarine had moved. You were bombing water, empty ocean. The U-boats knew this, and they were killing Allied ships faster than they could be replaced. Before we dive into how Britain solved this problem, hit that like button right now. This story is about simple engineering beating complex systems, about innovation under pressure, about how one cheap weapon changed the entire war. Your like helps more people discover these forgotten stories. And subscribe, turn on notifications. We share untold WWII histories every day. Real innovation, real courage, real solutions. Don't miss them. Now, let me show you why depth charges were failing. Here's the problem with depth charges. They're effective if they explode close enough to a submarine. The pressure wave crushes the hull, ruptures compartments, kills the crew. But getting them close enough was nearly impossible. Here's why. A destroyer detects a submarine using ASDIC, British sonar. Active sonar sends a ping. The ping bounces off the submarine, returns an echo. The operator can tell direction and rough distance. So far, so good. But here's where it breaks down. To drop depth charges, the destroyer has to position itself directly over the submarine. That means charging toward the target at high speed. As you approach, you lose sonar contact. The submarine is directly below you. Your sonar can't detect it anymore. You're running blind. You estimate where the submarine is, drop charges, they sink at about 10 feet per second. If set for 300 feet, that's 30 seconds of falling. During those 30 seconds, the submarine is moving, full speed, changing course. By the time your charges explode, the submarine is 100 yards away. Safe. You just bombed empty water. German U-boat commanders understood this perfectly. When they heard ASDIC pings, they knew an attack was coming. Standard evasion, crash dive. Go deep, change course hard, listen for the destroyer's propellers passing overhead, count. Wait. Hear the depth charges hit water. More counting. Explosions. Far away. Survived. Surface. Continue hunting. This happened over and over. Convoys crossed the Atlantic. U-boats attacked. Escorts counterattacked. U-boats escaped. In 1942, German submarines sank over 6 million tons of Allied shipping. That's over 1,200 ships. Escorts dropped thousands of depth charges. U-boats lost 87. The math was devastating. U-boats were winning, Britain was losing, and the weapon everyone relied on wasn't working. The British Admiralty knew they had a problem. Not enough escorts, not enough weapons, not enough kills. German U-boats operated with near impunity. Every convoy lost ships. Every crossing cost lives. Britain was an island. Everything came by sea. Food, fuel, weapons, raw materials. If the convoy stopped, Britain starved. Churchill later wrote that the U-boat threat terrified him more than anything else in the war, more than Luftwaffe bombers, more than invasion threats, because submarines were invisible, unpredictable, and unkillable with current weapons. The Admiralty put out a call. Engineers, scientists, inventors, anyone with ideas. We need a better weapon, something that works, something that kills submarines, anything. Enter Charles Goodenough, Canadian engineer, professor, not a weapons designer, not a military expert, just a smart man who understood physics. And he'd been thinking about the depth charge problem. The issue wasn't the explosive, it was the delivery system. You had to lose sonar contact to attack. That was backwards. What if you could fire ahead, launch projectiles forward while still maintaining sonar contact? The submarine wouldn't know the attack was coming until projectiles hit. No time to evade, no warning, just sudden destruction. Goodenough sketched designs in 1941. Small bombs, fired from a mortar, not dropped, launched, forward, creating a pattern ahead of the ship. The submarine would sail into the pattern, multiple simultaneous hits, overwhelming, inescapable. The design was unconventional. 24 spigot mortars arranged in a circle. Each mortar held a small bomb, 65 pounds, contact-fused, meaning they only exploded if they hit something solid, like a submarine hull. If they missed, they sank to the bottom without exploding. This was revolutionary. Depth charges exploded whether they hit or not, created massive disturbance, confused sonar, made it impossible to tell if you'd scored a kill. Hedgehog projectiles only exploded on contact. If you heard explosions, you hit the submarine. If you heard nothing, you missed. Clean, simple, immediate feedback. The name? Someone said the weapon looked like a hedgehog, 24 spikes pointing outward. The name stuck. The first Hedgehog was installed on HMS Westcott in January 1942. Destroyer, anti-submarine escort. The crew was skeptical. The weapon looked ridiculous. 24 little mortars? Tiny bombs? How could this work better than massive depth charges? But orders were orders. Train with it, learn to use it, wait for an opportunity. That opportunity came in December 1942. HMS Hesperus detected U-357. Commander Donald McIntyre was an experienced U-boat killer. He'd sunk multiple submarines with depth charges, but this time he had a Hedgehog. He maneuvered into position, maintained sonar contact the entire approach. At 200 yards, he fired. 24 projectiles launched in rapid succession, arced through the air, fell in an elliptical pattern ahead of the ship. Sonar operators tracked the submarine, still moving, still unaware. Then, explosions. Multiple. Simultaneous. The submarine was hit. U-357 was destroyed. Hull breached in multiple locations, sank immediately. No survivors. 51 German sailors dead. It was the Hedgehog's first confirmed kill, and it proved the concept worked. Word spread through the Royal Navy fast. This weapon actually kills submarines. Not sometimes, reliably. McIntyre became a Hedgehog advocate, wrote reports, taught tactics, demonstrated to skeptical commanders. The statistics started coming in. Depth charge attacks resulted in U-boat kills about 4% of the time. 4 attacks out of 100. Hedgehog attacks? 25%. 1 in 4. 6 times more effective for a fraction of the cost. Drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us what other WWII weapons we should cover. Your engagement helps this channel grow, helps these stories reach more people. Be part of keeping history alive. The Admiralty ordered mass production. Every escort destroyer, every corvette, every frigate. Install Hedgehogs. The weapon was cheap. Incredibly cheap, about $10,000 for installation, compared to hundreds of thousands for advanced sonar, millions for new ships. The projectiles cost almost nothing. 65 pounds of steel and explosive, simple contact fuse, no complex timing mechanisms, no fancy electronics, just basic engineering. Britain could produce thousands. America started producing them too. Lend-lease agreements. U.S. destroyers got Hedgehogs, Canadian ships, even some free French vessels. By 1943, Hedgehogs were everywhere, and U-boat losses started climbing. German U-boat commanders started reporting a new weapon, not depth charges, something else, something that gave no warning. One moment, calm patrol, Next moment, multiple explosions against the hull. No time to react, no evasion possible. Survivors described it, if there were survivors. Multiple simultaneous impacts. The submarine would buckle, flood, sink fast. Crews had no time to abandon ship, no time to surface, just sudden catastrophic destruction. Karl Donitz, commander of the U-boat fleet, read the reports. He understood immediately. The Allies had solved the depth charge problem. This new weapon changed everything. Attack tactics that worked for 3 years suddenly failed. U-boats that survived dozens of depth charge attacks were getting killed on first contact with this new system. March 1943. Convoy HX-223. One of the largest convoy battles of the war. 40 merchant ships, 6 escorts. 40 German U-boats converged. The Wolf Pack. Coordinated attack. Standard German tactic. Overwhelm escorts, sink merchants. In past battles, this worked. Escorts would drop depth charges, U-boats would evade, return, continue attacking. This time, different. 4 escorts had Hedgehogs. When U-boats approached, escorts didn't lose sonar contact, fired Hedgehogs while tracking. U-boats didn't know attacks were coming until projectiles hit. 3 U-boats sank in the first 12 hours. U-221, U-384, U-631, all killed by Hedgehog. The other U-boats broke off. Too dangerous. The convoy lost 11 ships. Terrible. But without Hedgehogs, probably would have lost 20, maybe 30. The weapon was changing the math. Let's talk about why Hedgehog worked so much better. First, forward firing. You maintain sonar contact during the entire attack. No blind dropping. Second, pattern saturation. 24 projectiles covering a large area. The submarine can't evade all of them. Third, contact fusing. Only explodes on hit. No background noise, no confusion. You know immediately if you killed the target. Fourth, shallow water capability. Depth charges needed deep water, at least 200 feet. Otherwise, explosions damaged the attacking ship. Hedgehog worked in shallow water. Projectiles were small, less explosive, safe for the firing ship. This meant U-boats couldn't hide in shallow coastal areas anymore. Fifth, speed. Depth charge attack took time. Position, drop, wait for explosion, assess, reposition. Hedgehog, fire, no instantly. If miss, fire again. Rapid successive attacks, no time for submarine to escape. The statistics tell the story. 1942, 87 U-boats lost. 1943, 237 U-boats lost. 1944, 241 U-boats lost. What changed? Multiple factors. Better radar, more escorts, improved tactics. But Hedgehog was critical. By 1944, Hedgehog-equipped ships accounted for over 30% of U-boat kills, despite being less than 20% of escort fleet. Ships with Hedgehogs were significantly more likely to sink submarines than ships without. The weapon didn't just improve odds, it fundamentally changed how anti-submarine warfare worked. Donitz issued new orders. Avoid Hedgehog-equipped ships if possible. If detected by a ship with forward-firing weapon, dive immediately. Go deep. Change course radically. Don't surface until certain contact is lost. These tactics helped, slightly, but they also meant U-boats spent more time evading and less time attacking. Mission effectiveness dropped. A U-boat avoiding escorts wasn't sinking merchants, and that was the point. Even when Hedgehogs didn't kill, they disrupted, forced submarines to be defensive, reduced their effectiveness, changed their behavior. The psychological impact was huge. The U.S. Navy adopted Hedgehog enthusiastically. American engineers made improvements. Mousetrap system, simpler mounting, faster reloading. Some ships got multiple Hedgehogs, forward and aft. Ability to engage submarines from multiple angles. American destroyers in the Pacific used Hedgehogs against Japanese submarines. Same effectiveness. Japanese subs had no counter. Same problem Germans faced. The weapon worked anywhere, against any submarine, because it solved a fundamental problem that all submarines shared.
They were vulnerable when detected, and Hedgehog made detection fatal. April 1945. The war was ending, Germany collapsing, but U-boats still operated. Dönitz ordered them to continue fighting, tie down Allied resources. May 7, 1945, one day before German surrender, HMS Redmill detected U-2336, North Sea. Final U-boat patrol of the war. Redmill fired Hedgehog, direct hits. U-2336 sank, the last U-boat sunk by Hedgehog, the last U-boat kill of the European War. 4 years of battle, thousands of engagements. Hedgehog had proven itself, not just effective, essential. The weapon that turned the Battle of the Atlantic. Share this video right now. Send it to someone who loves military history. Post it somewhere. This is the kind of innovation that wins wars. Simple, effective, cheap. Hit that share button. After the war, analysts studied anti-submarine weapons. The data was clear. Depth charges sank approximately 1 U-boat per 25 attacks, 4% kill rate. Hedgehog sank approximately 1 U-boat per 4 attacks, 25% kill rate. Total U-boats sunk by Hedgehog? 47 confirmed, dozens more probably. Ships carried both weapons, often used both. Hard to determine which weapon made the kill. But ships equipped with Hedgehog had significantly higher success rates. The weapon worked. Numbers proved it. Simple engineering had solved the problem that complex systems couldn't. Why did Hedgehog succeed where other weapons failed? Because it solved the actual problem, not the perceived problem. Everyone thought the problem was explosive power, make bigger depth charges, deeper settings, more charges per attack. Wrong. The problem was tactical. You couldn't attack and track simultaneously. Hedgehog fixed that. Forward firing meant continuous tracking. Multiple projectiles meant saturation. Contact fusing meant immediate feedback. None of these required advanced technology, just different thinking. Sometimes the solution isn't more complex, it's more simple, applied correctly. Modern anti-submarine warfare still uses Hedgehog principles. Forward-firing rockets, pattern saturation, contact detection. Modern systems are more sophisticated. Guided torpedoes, helicopter-launched weapons, submarine-launched cruise missiles. But the core concept remains. Engage while tracking. Don't lose contact. Create saturation. Ensure kill. Hedgehog established these principles. Modern weapons refined them. Every submarine hunter today uses tactics derived from a weapon designed in 1941 by an engineer thinking about physics. That's legacy.
Charles Goodenough never became famous, never got a medal, just did his job, solved a problem, moved on to other work. After the war, he helped establish the Royal Canadian Navy's research programs, continued inventing, improving, always practical, always focused on what worked, not what looked impressive. When asked about Hedgehog, he shrugged, said it was obvious. Fix the tactical problem, and the kills follow. He died in 1980. Obituaries mentioned his war work, but most people didn't know what Hedgehog was. Didn't understand it saved thousands of lives, sank dozens of U-boats, changed the Atlantic War. He wouldn't have cared about fame anyway. He cared about solutions. The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest continuous military campaign of World War II, September 1939 to May 1945. Nearly 6 years. Over 36,000 Allied merchant sailors died. 72,000 German U-boat crew died. Thousands of ships sunk. Millions of tons sent to the bottom. It was brutal, merciless, and it nearly cost Britain the war. Technology like Hedgehog made the difference. Not the only factor, but critical. Without effective anti-submarine weapons, convoys couldn't get through. Without convoys, Britain starved. Without Britain, the invasion of Europe doesn't happen. Small weapons, big consequences. What can we learn from Hedgehog? First, simple solutions often beat complex ones. The weapon used basic physics, basic engineering, no fancy electronics, no advanced computers, just mortars and bombs. Second, understand the actual problem. Everyone focused on explosive power. Goodenough focused on tactics. Solving the right problem matters more than solving the obvious problem. Third, test and iterate. First hedgehogs weren't perfect. They improved through use, feedback from crews, combat experience, continuous refinement. Fourth, cost matters. Hedgehog was cheap, could be mass-produced, equipped entire fleets. Expensive wonder weapons that can't be deployed widely don't win wars. Fifth, legacy comes from effectiveness. Nobody remembers Hedgehog today, but it changed naval warfare forever. Results matter more than recognition. This story isn't about celebrating death. 47 U-boats sunk means thousands of German sailors died. Young men, trapped in metal tubes, crushed by pressure, drowned in darkness. They were following orders, fighting for their country. Their deaths weren't victories to celebrate. They were tragedies. Necessary tragedies, maybe, but tragedies nonetheless. Same for merchant sailors. Men who weren't soldiers, weren't fighters, just trying to deliver cargo, keep supply lines open. They died by the thousands, torpedoed, burned, drowned in freezing Atlantic water. The Hedgehog saved some, made convoys safer, reduced losses. That matters. But remember the cost on both sides. Do 3 things right now. First, hit that like button. Second, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? What other forgotten weapons should we cover? Third, share this video. These engineering stories matter. Innovation matters. Understanding how problems get solved matters. Hit those buttons. Keep this knowledge alive. Today's destroyers still hunt submarines. Modern sensors, advanced weapons, networked systems sharing data globally. But they still use forward-firing weapons, still saturate areas with projectiles, still track continuously during attack. Hedgehog's principles survive. Refined, improved, but fundamentally the same. Because Goodenough was right. Solve the tactical problem and kills follow. Modern submarine warfare is more complex. Quieter subs, deeper diving, longer-range weapons. But the basics remain. Find the submarine, track it continuously, attack before it knows you're there. Hedgehog proved this works. Everything since has been refinement. Thank you for watching this story about a weapon most people never heard of, that changed a war, that saved thousands of lives, that proved simple engineering beats complexity. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. We find these forgotten stories, these overlooked innovations, these moments that changed everything, and we make sure they're remembered. The Hedgehog wasn't glamorous, wasn't famous, but it worked. And that's what mattered. Never forget that simple solutions, applied correctly, change history.